Super Rugby 2025, folks, is not too far away, kicking off this very weekend. Let's have a look at some of the odds, who are the favourites to win the competition this year, who is already being written off. I feel like it's a good season in terms of some of the storylines. Adi Savia moving to Moana Pacifica should hopefully lift that club, the Fijian and Drua. Will they manage to get some games won on the road and not just have Fortress Fiji to rely upon? If so, they could be a potential contender for the competition, but it's proved difficult in the past. Can the Blues defend their title? Will the Crusaders bounce back? And how will the Aussie teams go? With the Rebels no longer in the comp, the talent has been dispersed largely across the remaining Aussie teams, particularly the Waratahs. So will that see them have the depth to compete at a higher level in 2025? Well, let's go through some of the predictions and you guys can let us know your thoughts. I've kind of grouped the teams. The semi-final teams last year, the Blues, Chiefs were the finalists. Hurricanes and Brumbies, the beaten semi-finalists. Then the other playoff teams, the Reds, Drua and Highlanders. Remember, the Rebels were also there, but they are gone for the 2025 season. And the teams who didn't make the playoffs, the Crusaders, the Force, Moana Pacifica and the Tars. Well, in terms of the prediction stuff, if we're taking the bookies' numbers, cutting off their over round, which sees them always go into each situation with a little bit of an advantage over the punters, then we're going to have to move the teams around a bit because the Crusaders are one of the sides that is seen as a kind of potential contender, whereas sadly for the Drua and for the Highlanders, these guys are kind of in the also rans section. All these teams, Moana Pacifica, the Waratahs, the Force, the Drua, and the Highlanders are being given, if you can read that, a less than 5%, under 5% chance of getting anything done. Like if we're talking the actual bookies numbers, the Waratahs are playing $21, the Drua 26, the Highlanders 31, the Force 81, and Moana Pacifica are once again predicted to be the absolute bottom of the bunch, even if they didn't finish bottom of the log last year, paying $101. So all those sides predicted not to do a heck of a lot. The Reds, who were pretty solid, you feel like, last year, are maybe a little bit kind of undervalued. They are here at 5% for 2025, so paying $15. They have got a few names from the Rebels, so potentially a bit more depth in 2025. Now, according to the bookies, the top ranked of the Aussie teams is going to be the Brumbies. They are at 10%. Which gives their chance of winning it below the Crusaders, below the Hurricanes, below the Blues, and below the Chiefs. Maybe, again, a little bit undervalued because the Brumbies have got a fair bit of consistency under Stephen Larkham. They've not had to pilfer other teams for talent. They're largely a pretty kind of core squad that we saw last year. They start away in Fiji, so that'll be kind of an interesting test of where they're at because the Aussie teams have traditionally not done that well in Fiji. Then we come in with the Crusaders. They've had a kind of few injuries in preseason, but 11% chance. So the Crusaders are paying $7, the Brumbies 8, and the Reds 15. So more or less these numbers with a little bit of rounding. Crusaders, you feel like are going to make the playoffs. Surely they can't go two seasons in a row where they don't make the playoffs. Then you've got the Hurricanes, who, if you remember, finished top of the regular season standings last year, but then fell at home to the Chiefs in that semi-final. The number 10 jersey is going to be an interesting one with the injuries they've had. Then second favourites kind of makes sense. It's last year's runner-up, the Chiefs. We tend to put the odds largely based on the results last year. There's some exceptions like the Crusaders. They're much more highly ranked than based on last year's performances. And then the Blues here with 28%. The favourites. I'm going to have to get used to that because as a Blues fan, we spend a lot of time in misery. We've got injuries of our own. We've lost Sam Derry for the season, but a lot of teams have lost guys. Tatiti's out for the Chiefs for the entire season. So it is about the depth and what the coaches can do with those players. So I don't think there's anything too startling there. The Brumbies are the top-ranked Aussie team, perhaps a little bit under-ranked. The reigning champions are the top-ranked team overall. That kind of makes sense. The runners-up are second-ranked. Kind of makes sense. Teams who didn't make the playoffs are largely written off. But you can guarantee there's going to be some kind of storyline which throws a bit of a spanner in the works. It never kind of quite goes as you would expect. Now, this is all bookie stuff. If you want to kind of get into kind of more algorithmic predictions, if you look at the Rugby Forecast algorithm, which is one we look at a fair bit, it's pretty similar. They've got the Blues as the favourites. They've got the Chiefs as second. They've got the Hurricanes third. That's the same as the bookies. They are ranking the Brumbies a bit higher than the Crusaders anyway, which is a kind of swap from what the bookies have got. Then they got the Reds, Highlanders, Drua, Force, Moana Pacifica. The Rugby Forecast algorithm only looks at results. It doesn't look at recruitment. So one would think with the recruitment the Waratahs have done in the off-season, they should finish not last. But sometimes getting a bunch of new faces to gel can be the trickiest task for a coach. Now, they've also got Super Rugby Fantasy this year. We talked about that the other day. If you want to sign up and play some fantasy, got a pool down in the description or down in the comments. Me and Tony from Distracted Sports have set up a pool. We do a podcast together called 2 Cents Gets Distracted, so feel free to check that out. We've been talking largely Six Nations at the moment, but Super Rugby was also mentioned a wee bit towards the tail end of the last podcast, so check that out. Sign up to Super Rugby Fantasy. There is, I believe, a cash prize for the winner of that one, so a little bit of an incentive to get playing. But you guys let us know your thoughts. How do you reckon the Super Rugby teams are looking ahead of the 2025 season? Where do you reckon the bookies have left a little bit of value potentially, or do you think it is going to be more or less the same teams, Blues, Chiefs, Hurricanes, and Brumbies? Is that going to be your top four once again? You guys let us know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.